You know, there's this famous quote, "Fiction reveals truth that reality obscures." Basically, it means that sometimes stories that aren't real can actually show us truths that are hidden in real life. And speaking of that, ever since Squid Game Season 2 dropped this past December, you've probably seen those posts floating around Instagram or TikTok. The ones claiming Squid Game is actually based on a real event from 1980s Korea. A lot of people are freaking out about this, and it's easy to see why. It's a chilling thought, right? But here's the thing. There's another quote that says, "Good fiction creates its own reality." And that's exactly what's going on here. None of those viral stories or photos are true. The images that people are sharing, they were actually created using AI by a Turkish artist named Sayhat Hermutku, and he never gave permission for them to be used this way. Even Squid Game's creator, Hwang Dong-hyuk, has never mentioned anything about the so-called Brothers Home being linked to his show, because the truth is, Brothers Home wasn't like Squid Game at all. If anything, it was far worse. Sure, there are some surface-level similarities, but the stories spreading online, they're not just false, they're unfair to the real victims of Brothers Home. The nightmare they lived through was beyond what you could imagine, even in your darkest dreams. So today, let's set the record straight and take a closer look at the real, horrifying story of Brothers Home. The story begins. This all started after the Korean War ended in the 1950s. The war had torn the country apart. Millions of people died. Families were separated. The economy was in ruins. South Korea was struggling to rebuild. And with that came a heartbreaking sight. Streets filled with orphans, homeless people, and beggars. The government saw them as a problem, as something that damaged the country's image. So in the 1960s, the government started what they called the Social Welfare Services Act. The idea? Round up homeless people, orphans, and anyone seen as undesirable and send them to welfare centers. In reality, though, the system was deeply flawed and corrupt. The police didn't have clear guidelines. They grabbed anyone they wanted, homeless people, kids walking home from school, or just anyone who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Why? Because they got government money for every person they brought in. And once you were inside one of these centers, getting out was nearly impossible. Out of the 36 centers across South Korea, the largest and the most infamous was Brothers Home in Busan. It started out as an orphanage, but by the 1970s, it had turned into something much darker. The director, Park In-kyun, claimed he was helping people. But behind those walls, what was happening was pure horror. People often compare Brothers Home to a Nazi concentration camp, and that gives you an idea of just how brutal it was. Inside, there were no real laws, only the rules of Park In-kyun and his team. They set up a twisted system where prisoners were forced to control each other. The strongest or most ruthless prisoners got power over the others, and that kept everyone divided and afraid. Survivors describe beatings, torture, and abuse that are almost impossible to imagine. One survivor, Choi Song-bak, was just 13 when he was detained. Not because he was homeless, but simply because he was walking home from school. His first night, he was stripped, doused with ice-cold water, and left without clothes or a blanket. That same night, he was sexually assaulted. This was daily life in Brothers Home. Escaping, pretty much impossible. The place was surrounded by walls as high as those in Attack on Titan. And even when people tried to run, they were often betrayed by other prisoners desperate for any scrap of favor from the guards. Most people inside gave up hope. They believed the only way out was death. But in the 1980s, the truth started to leak out. A local hunter saw prisoners being beaten while forced to chop wood, and tipped off the authorities. That sparked an investigation, and what they found was beyond horrifying. In 12 years, thousands of people had been imprisoned there. Many of them completely innocent. Hundreds had died. And the man running it all, Park In-kyun, had been pocketing government money while these people were starved, tortured, and worked to death. When the story finally broke in 1987, it shocked not just South Korea, but the whole world. Hope you liked this video. If you want more mysterious and crazy cases, give it a like and subscribe the channel, and don't forget to comment down below. See you in the next video. Goodbye.